Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah,
Okay,
that's brilliant. And we're live. We're actually live on YouTube.
Hey, all right. Is it on the same link or is it a different link?
It's a different link.
Okay, so I'll redo all that later because I posted that a bunch of different places. So
yeah, it's so frustrating actually. But anyway, just for people who want to know what happened, StreamYard are very expensive. We're on StreamYard right now, so I was trying a thing called Riverside, and it was a complete and utter waste of time. But there you go. Anyway, we were going to talk about glucose, blood glucose. And we're going to talk about
we were talking. Well, we did talk about it a little bit. We can start all over if you want. Let's start from the beginning.
I think we should, because you were talking about the variation. Let's go straight into that because that's interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, we started. I think we initially started talking about me coming on when this whole sugar diet thing started, and it was like I saw you posted something about A1C not really being as important as, not really being what a lot of people, the weight that a lot of people put on A1C, maybe being a little misconstrued or misapplied. And then I was like, we talked a little bit about this area of glycemic variability being important to discuss as well. Because I don't hear, like you said, you mentioned you've been talking about it for a while. I don't hear a lot of people talking about this. And I think in the age of CGMs and our ability to actually track this now, because that's where this marker comes from, because we can now see every time I eat something, what happens every time I don't, all of the ups and downs about our blood glucose. And it's no longer limited to the once every 3 month, once every 6 month, what's my blood sugar, what's my A1C. And we can actually see the impact of every single thing that we put in our mouth. So having that ability, and then the data coming out, there's a handful of studies that have come out that talk about and show that the spikes and the valleys of our blood sugar are more impactful on our metabolic health than the actual overall average. So if my average is a 5.5, that may be great if that's all I had to look at, and it's better than being a 6 or a 6.5 or a 7. But if that 5.5 is because I'm at 150 at one point in the day and at 50 the next point in the day, and then I'm at 150 and then I'm at 50 and then I'm at 150, like those are not good things to be in. That's not a good state to be in. From an oxidative stress perspective, an inflammation perspective, a glycation perspective, and all the things that come with that.
Yeah, it's funny, really, because that's the example I use, which is
and that's why I just stole it from you.
But people don't really get that. You see, you could be 105, 95, 105, 95, and be 100. And what you said there, 150 to a 50, 150 to a 50, and you're definitely going to be 100. So there you go. The average, straight away, you've blown the average straight out of the water. And the variability is absolutely much more important. And what's going on in the background, if you go up to 150, you're going to get a spike of insulin as well. And that's the other thing that's not taken into consideration. Yeah. So I think, you could be looking at your blood glucose and thinking it's pretty good, but how much insulin are you requiring to make it look pretty good? And that's the thing.
And that's where the insulin resistance issue really applies, because it's not the general overall load. It's the extreme end that is constantly it's that drum that's constantly being beat on all the time, right? So it's when you're overloaded 18, 20, 30 times a day that the problem comes into play. Because let's say you're in that 95 to 105 and you're going back and forth between that load of what you're getting at 105 isn't likely more than what your body can handle and process at any given time. It's the 150 that is overloading your body's ability to process. And now you have insulin that your body doesn't know what to do. I've got nothing to do with this. I'm overloaded. So it's the load it's the acute chronic insulin load, right? It's not the chronic insulin load, which is a really kind of weird thing to talk about. It's the acute chronic. It's the acute high, not the chronic high. So that concept is a little kind of hard to wrap your head around because we've never really talked about it before. Yeah.
And I think we use the old-fashioned word. It depends if it's spiking or if it's a bump, and that's the thing. The body, but the pancreas has what's called a biphasic response. It's always ready and waiting, and it's got a granular response. And then it's also, and these are really popular
Which
now.
is why I love talking about the protein fat impact on insulin and not having it, right? It doesn't have as much of an effect on blood sugar, but it does have an effect on insulin. So you're getting a gradual insulin spike or rise, not a spike, rise over a longer period of time. So the area under the curve is similar, but it's not as stressful on the body, and it's not due to a specific blood glucose response, right? It's an actual response to the macros that you're getting in that first phase and second phase of digestion, which is so much better for the body. It's so much less stressful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of people don't really sort of understand. Well, they might begin to. The GLP, the incretin hormones, when you eat, your small intestine picks up on what's going on, and it will tell your pancreas, we need some insulin, by the way, because the sweet is actually now in the small intestine, which is why you get the biphasic response. Well, that's 10 times greater. So when you've got, like a refined sugar going through, and this is going back to, say, the sugar diet, it's hitting your stomach so quickly, it's getting through the system so quickly that you get an inappropriate insulin response because it's blood glucose concentration is a bit too high and therefore toxic. And that's when you get the sugar crash, because the insulin is inappropriate or appropriate for the body, but it will actually just drop your blood sugar in a sort of quite sharp manner, and then you get the blood sugar crash. Oh wow, it was only 2 hours ago before I was eating, and now I've got to eat again. Just the sugar,
but it's the body's preferred fuel, Stephen.
Well, actually, I'm writing the Substack with all the science behind that myth about carbohydrates.
Oh my gosh, I'd love to see that, because I fight that all the time, and people, it amazes me how really smart people don't know the difference between prioritized and preferred, and understanding that oxidative priority isn't the same as preference. And our body does not actually prefer anything, because here's the thing: preference assumes choice.
Yes.
If we look at the definition and we actually use the words appropriately, preference assumes choice. And our body does not have a choice in anything that it does. Our body only responds to programming. So if you put it in a specific scenario, it is programmed to respond a specific way. So we have a choice in what we do in the scenarios we create with our body, but our body does not have a choice in how it responds to the scenarios we create. And people just don't get that. They don't understand that.
Yeah, and as Andrew is pointing out, alcohol is prioritized, right?
Absolutely.
Not our preferred. Yeah. So it's going in what is the most toxic, which is
yes. And that's the other right. We talk about prioritization is really based on toxicity and storage capacity. So the less storage capacity you have, the faster your body's going to try to utilize or remove it. And the more toxic something is, the faster your body's going to try to utilize or remove it. So that's pretty much what that's all based on.
Yeah, absolutely. I must say, you're looking very fit, by the way.
Thanks.
And the book's going well, is it?
It is. I get feedback from it every once in a while. Somebody says, "Hey, I got this out of it. I got that out of it." And the whole idea of the book, Body Confident, for those listening, it's on Amazon. It's my latest book. I actually have 3. It's crazy to think that I have 3 books that I've written. It's really weird for me. I always hated writing. So the fact that I'm now an author is a whole different, it's really, I still can't wrap my head around that. It's a book that I wrote initially. I started writing it. The idea for writing it was to help coaches. Way to go, Andrea. That's awesome. Is to help coaches evaluate where their clients were and how to work with individuals. So the problem that a lot of people get stuck in is we start looking at methods and mechanisms and following programs and recommendations, and we stop looking at that individual who am I? Where am I coming from? What have I done in the past? What's worked for me in the past? Where am I trying to go? What can I actually implement in my life right now? What can I do that's sustainable? All of those types of things. What do I actually need in order to move forward? A lot of us are doing way more than we need to do. And if we just took a step back and maybe didn't exercise 7 days a week, and maybe didn't try to be 100% strict and follow some regimented nutrition plan, we'd actually see more success, right? So there's a lot of aspects of things that people are doing, and they're ignoring themselves in the equation. And that's really what this book is about. It's about bringing us back to, what do you need as a person? What is the minimum effective dose? What is the adequate solution for you right now to move you forward? And then have a framework that you can go back and reevaluate on a periodic basis to see if you're still making the choices that are going to move you forward. Because what I decide to do today isn't going to be the same thing I need to do a year from now, or 2 years from now, 3 years from now. So the purpose of this book is to always have it in your back pocket, and you will always have something to refer back to help you make the next step. Because the process is the same. It's a circular repeating process. And if you learn what that process is, if you learn what the method is of how to look at what you're doing and what your next step should be, then you'll never get stuck, because you always know what the next step is.
Well, yeah, and it's good to have a roadmap, isn't it, or some sort of guide, or a checklist, or however you want to view it. And I think I'll just go back to you saying about writing 3 books. The thing is, and we spoke about this on the live stream that didn't work.
Yeah.
you finish the book, and then you find something else out that you want to tell people, and you think, should have put that in the book. So you have to either continually extend that book, or just write another one. So I think you did the right thing. You wrote another one.
Yeah, or write another one. Or actually, what I'm doing now, I have probably 8 books on my list of books to write.
Yes.
But what I've actually shifted to now is I've got 2 papers I'm working on. So I'm actually kind of shifting a little bit more into, I really want to contribute to the literature and the research that's out there, and start getting, because here's where the problem that I see is, we can do this all day long, but until the science starts adjusting, until we start adjusting what the data, how the data is interpreted, that's really the key. It's not, we can't adjust the data is the data, but until we start getting the scientific community to realize that they cannot apply traditional metabolic paradigms to a ketogenic diet, because the paradigms are completely different, right? So until we start demonstrating what the differences are and how things work differently in the literature, then we're not going to have a leg to stand on when we make claims like I claim stuff all the time on my social media. Carbs don't build muscle. Carbs are ruining your recovery. I make those statements, and everybody comes at me, because there's no data. So we got to start putting that data out there. So that's kind of stuff I'm working on now.
Yeah, you see, we're on the same page, because that's why I wrote the guide to blood tests in the context of low carb, ketogenic, or carnivore, because the normative ranges are completely irrelevant. They're based on somebody eating 45-65% carbohydrates. And literally, I've done 2 consults today where the bloods are good for that person on the way they're eating, but flagged by the lab.
Absolutely.
And it's crazy. And you're absolutely right. And we're not even saying anything controversial, because even in the mainstream, so for instance, the EGFR reading is something that is very bad on carnivore and keto and low carb, because we have more protein, so we have more creatinine, so therefore the estimated filtration rate looks lower than it actually is. And you should do a cystatin C test, which is much more accurate. And I had somebody that was under 60 for their filtration rate, did the cystatin C, and it was actually 112 compared to 58. And that's how much difference these readings can be when they're using conventional methods. Luckily, in 2021, it was agreed that the way they do the EGFR is racist, actually. I mean, so this is a positive side of being woke. Which is true, by the way, because if you are African American, or a couple of other a couple of other areas of the world, you will get your EGFR multiplied by 1.58.
Interesting.
So purely because of your genetics or your ethnicity, and many people think it's a bit racist. Now, so they actually suggested do a cystatin C and take that element out. So that's the only element of wokeness that's actually
that you're a fan of, right? Yeah. Well, that brings up a point in so my area and where I'm focusing. So I don't know if you know, I'm starting a doctorate next month. And I'm going to be focusing doctorate of health science, but my area of specialty and where I'm going to be focusing my research and everything I'm doing from this point on is the ketogenic sports and nutrition. So looking at trying to just change the concepts and the paradigms of how everything is looked at. And what you said is really important. You said it earlier, all of the data that we need to show that these things are different when we look at it from a ketogenic context already exist. All of the studies that I see in the exercise science and sports performance area that talk about nutrition, macronutrient intake, and their effects on metabolic performance or sports performance, all of them show markers of improved metabolic function, but none of them conclude that keto is good for sports performance. Right? So it's like, okay, where are we missing this? And that, again, that's the interpretation, that's the assumptions, that's the paradigms that everybody's basing all of our evaluation on is all carb centric. And that's what needs to change.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying about the Substack I'm writing about, the carbohydrates being non-essential. Right? It's interesting because it's exactly the same principle, because the studies are there, the statements are there, that there is no such thing as an essential carbohydrate. It says something like, the human body's requirement carbohydrate is 0. Actually says that. Yeah. Yep. But we would recommend, based on nothing.
Right. Based on nothing, it's just because. Yeah.
So everything you've just written, you're just going to completely ignore and still recommend carbohydrates. And, when we were talking about the sugar diet, there's a couple of things about the FGF21 protein. Well, that's not new. 11 years ago, when I first was sort of just changing from high carb to low carb in the diabetics realm, that was talked about as the miracle thing to work on. So that wasn't new. And we also have, we're looking at the ATP concentration of the hepatic cells when you have a lot of fructose. Well, that isn't new. The second Substack I want to mention, I'm going through the ATP depletion in the liver.
Okay.
Because you're eating fruit, or you're eating fructose, which obviously fruit would be one of those things. But it's all known. All of this stuff is known, and the process is known. The steps are known. Where the phosphate is taken off the ATP, that's known. We know every single step, but it's conveniently ignored.
Conveniently ignored. Yep.
Yeah.
And we see it. And we see it everywhere. It's not just in glucose metabolism. It's in, when we talk about energy, we talk about calories. There are a bazillion reasons calories are a crock of crap.
Yes.
Right. And it's just all of these things. It's frustrating, but at the same time, it is motivating, because I know there are so many people out there that are just lost in the incorrect information, but then also in the conflicting information. That's a lot of the people that I work with they got 8 different things they're trying to follow, and they listen to one person who says this, then they listen to another person who says that, and they're exact opposites, and they don't know what to do. So,
yeah. And the thing is, it's so faddy as well at the moment, because the sugar diet, like you said earlier, people are already pulling away and saying, well, hang on a minute. No, I didn't really say that. Well, they did. Obviously, Cole Robinson realized that it wasn't doing him any favors and is now backtracking. I also think it's quite interesting that they say, I called it the sugar diet. I shouldn't have said that. It's just a low-fat diet. Well, it isn't. It's a protein-restricted diet.
Right.
So they even get the name wrong. But it was terrible for about 6 weeks, with people thinking.
Well, I mean, literally to the point. I think I have a quote from Mark Bell at the time saying that, and I'll get the quote wrong, but basically saying that the sugar diet is the best diet in the history of human civilization. Was one of his quotes. It's like, but then now 2 months later, oh, that's not really what I meant. I'm doing some complex carbs. I'm eating more protein, and I'm only doing it once a day now instead of all the time. Like, come on, man. Like, and people just love it. They're just loving it. And it's sad.
So what made you interested in particular in the blood glucose management then? What made you go down that rabbit hole?
Well, so initially, a little while ago, I had heard about glycemic variability. I've been looking into MAGE, so mean amplitude of glycemic excursion, as a new metric that we can now use because we have CGMs. So just for everybody's edification, MAGE is a metric that basically, using your CGM data, you look at the peaks and you look at the valleys and you average that out across the median. So if your average is, let's say, is 100, like we talked about, if you're doing a 105 or 150 to a 50, that's a big gap in between those to the median. The bigger that gap, the more danger you are, the higher your risk of all of the factors of metabolic syndrome, of all of the factors of inflammation, glycation, cancer, injury. And this is where it really got me. A couple months ago, I'm part of the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners. So I'm an MHP, and every month they have additional education training. We had Dr. Amy West on, and she was talking about the musculoskeletal impact of glycemic variability. And everything that she said, and it's super, for two reasons, it really affected me and got me really hyped on this topic. The idea being that there are a ton of musculoskeletal markers and issues that people can have that indicate insulin resistance, indicate excessive glycation, even if their blood work is fine. And this was me. So when I got started, one of the impacts of me starting the carnivore diet, I didn't start the carnivore diet because of major health issues or weight loss. I started it because I had gut issues and I was tired of crapping my pants all the time. So I was doing it as an elimination diet to see if I could heal my gut and my digestion. What happened in that process was I got better, and all of the chronic injuries and issues that I was having went away. So I was doing CrossFit at the time. I was at a point in my, let's see, when did I start? Mid 40s, where I could, if I could work out, if I could get 3 workouts in a week, it was a good week for me. My recovery sucked. I was hurt all the time. I had torn meniscus, torn labrums, herniated disc, pulled calf, pulled groin. Everything you could think of was hurting or kept me from training. Within 90 days of going carnivore, I was back in the gym 4, 5, 6 days a week. Until this training, I never thought about the impact of insulin resistance on my muscle, my ligaments, and my tendon health, right? It never occurred to me that glycation in my tendons could cause injury to the tissue, that the reason I couldn't recover was because of the excessive oxidative stress, right? Because of that reactive oxygen species, because of the inflammation, all of those things. During this training, she's going over all of the things that she's seeing in the literature and with her patients and things like that. And it's like, holy crap, everything she's talking about, from the symptoms of musculoskeletal damage because of carb intake, is what I had. I didn't have, I never got my blood sugar done. I didn't think about any of that stuff because that's not why I made the change. But now looking back, it was like, wow, all of the things that I had indicated insulin resistance, but it was in my muscles. It was in my physiology, not in my biology, which is a very different aspect. And that's kind of what got me fascinated, since I'm going into the sports performance exercise science realm anyways. It was super like, oh my God, this is a whole new area that I can look at. So I got super excited about it.
Yeah. So are you predominantly carnivore now? Or are you still? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I'm depending on what my food choices are. I try to stay under 15 grams of carbs a day, Every once in a while, I'll go up to 20 or 25 if I throw in some extra eggs or maybe some cheese or something. But for the most part, yeah, for the most part, I'm under 20, 15 carbs a day at the most.
Yeah, and you've not got scurvy yet or anything?
No, I hit 7 years in May, so I'm doing good.
Yeah. Oh, right. Okay. 7 years. So yeah, I'm a year behind you because I started on my 55th birthday, which is in May, by the way.
Okay.
And now here I am at 61. So yeah, 6 years. And I haven't had scurvy. I really haven't. It's, it's crazy, isn't it?
I don't have any problem working out. I don't have any problem building muscle. I don't have any problem getting lean if I need to. Like it's all of the things. And that's where some of this other stuff, I think we talked about, I wanted to throw in as well, is there's a whole nother aspect of the benefits of a ketogenic diet and sports performance or exercise. We got a lot of people, I'm sure, that listen to you that are trying to start fitness and get into fitness and improve their physical function. And I think we all need to understand this is also in the literature, and it may ruffle some feathers. A ketogenic diet does not improve acute sports performance. You will not improve your performance just because you go keto. Ketones and fat don't make you perform better as a fuel source. What they do is they improve your body's ability to recover and improve the volume, increase the volume that you can do, and increase the results from the adaptations you're getting during the work. So, and this is, a lot of people talk about, well, and I get a lot of kickback all the time on the internet. Well, keto is not good for exercise. You're right. It's not. It's no different than carbs. You're not going to improve. If you adapt to a ketogenic diet, you are not immediately going to improve better than if you were doing carbs. What's going to happen, though, is over time, you'll go from your volume will go from whatever it is to maybe a 5, 10, 50% increase over time. So now you get more volume. The environment that you create for your body to adapt better from the stimulus you get in that volume is going to improve, right? The things that your body needs to be more anabolic and to grow will improve. So it's a cascading ripple effect over time that increases the adaptation and the stimulus you get from the training that improves your performance. So it's not the fuel that matters. It's the metabolic changes that allow better training and better results from that training. That's where the benefits. And the cool thing about it, and this is really where clients I'm working with now are seeing the benefit. I know hundreds of athletes over the time I've been coaching. I've been coaching, God, since 2006. Wow, that's a long time. I feel old sometimes. It's like, man, things like talk about timelines of stuff. So I'm like, that's a long time, right? Particularly clients and athletes, whether they're competitive, whether it just, sports enthusiasts, whatever level, who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, who are like, I feel like crap. I can't recover. My performance is going down. Or even I used to be competitive. Now I just want to do it for fun, but I've got these pains. I've got this issue. I got that problem. This is wrong. I can't seem to, whatever those things are. A lot of that just has to do with, let's heal you, get rid of all of that extra stress that you've been putting on your body, let your body recover while supporting your performance long-term. Right. So the way I try to talk about ketogenic sport nutrition is we're not going to improve your performance immediately, but we're going to maintain your health while your training volume gets you better without sacrificing that health long-term. And that's what a lot of people don't realize, is that there is life after sport. You're not going to compete for the rest of your life, but and I hate to use this because right now I think he's about to get heart surgery, but Ronnie Coleman is the biggest example I can talk about this, right? The damage that he did to his body while he was competing, to the point where he can't even walk anymore, is not what we can't, like, what's the point of sacrificing your quality of life when you're 60, 70, 80 years old, and at the cost of following the masses, because the masses say you have to have carbs to perform. It doesn't have to be that way.
No, wow, Bronson. I tell you what, I could speak about this for 3 or 4 hours, but it would get very boring for everybody else, I think. But this really is a big thing for me. But anyway, Andrea has kindly donated $9.99, and she's asking, does carnivore help with the cardio part of exercise, such as CrossFit, or does only doing the exercise help? I am often limited first by how winded I get, well before my muscles give in.
Yeah. So a lot of the issues that I see, and I'll send you the link if you don't mind sharing it. I actually created a free ebook that people can download, Ketogenic Athletes Playbook. And I wrote it
in the chat.
Yeah, I wrote it specifically to help people who have those types of questions understand what adaptation means for people who are physically active or CrossFitters or whatever else. And carnivore, to be specific, and I love tearing words down, carnivore does not help with the cardio piece. Okay. Training the cardio piece while you're carnivore is what helps the cardio piece. So to be very specific, you have to make sure you're eating enough. You have to make sure you're staying hydrated with enough electrolytes. You have to make sure your fat intake is adequate for what you need. If you are doing CrossFit, if you are competitive in any athletic endeavor or do it a lot, right? If you have a high volume of physical activity, it's very likely you need more fat than you think. This is a common mistake I see athletes make, or people that are very physically active, is they follow keto weight loss macros and then wonder why their sports performance is crap. Right? Yes. So if you're trying to energize your body for effort that is above normal lifestyle, and you're working on getting lean, if you're over fat, or if you're already lean as an athlete, because many athletes are already fairly lean, you need to eat more fat. So there's a balance there too, where also I see a struggle. Some athletes are like, well, I'm trying to stay super lean. I don't want to gain any fat. Well, there's a balance, and your leanness, if your focus on being lean is impacting your performance because you're not eating enough, you got to make a decision. Which one's more important? I need to eat more fat, and that may mean I put on a little bit more, and there's a balance that you can find. But in most cases, I see a lot of athletes who just aren't eating enough. And it's a matter. So true keto adaptation for athletic endeavors can take up to 12 weeks or longer. There's a process. And I talk about this in the book that I'm going to link here. Let me pull up the link.
Okay. While you're doing that, I mean, I'm going to make it very broad, and I'll give you a practical example. Sometimes when you're training people, and don't forget, I was an advanced personal trainer. I did get someone to the Olympics actually from a standing start, type 1 diabetic. And you have to be specific. If you have an area that's holding you back, then you have to do training or whatever it is, something specific to address that issue. So for instance, I had someone that couldn't do pull-ups, and they wanted to improve their pull-ups, and their grip strength was actually letting them down more than anything else. And it was quite fascinating, but obvious as soon as you say it. So I said, well, we're going to do some specific grip exercise protocols, because once you improve your grip strength, that's going to make everything else for a pull-up a bit easier. I mean, pull-ups are quite difficult when you first start, but if you can't even hold the bar, you know, it's impossible. So that would be the same. So if you, Andrea, are getting winded, then that is something that you do need to sort of focus on, because there's no point in going in and trying to do a CrossFit exercise if by the time you've got your tracksuit top off, this is really difficult. So
and what you're talking about is scaling, progressions, and progressive overload. You got to figure out where you are. And often when people are transitioning to carnivore, or they're thinking about transitioning to a ketogenic diet, and they're doing these things, you have to understand, when you get started, don't go overnight. Unlike what I did, right? I probably wouldn't suggest. I went cold turkey. I woke up on one day and said, okay, I'm no longer eating anything but meat. Probably wasn't the best idea, but it's what I did. I don't recommend most people do that, particularly if you're trying to do athletic stuff or perform in some kind of sport. You have to gradually make changes. You have to understand that the process of adaptation takes time, and that initially your performance is very likely to go down. That doesn't mean it's not working. That just means your body is adapting. I liken it to when I have someone who comes in and they say, hey, you know, I'm a power lifter. I want to improve my squat. I've been stuck at the same 1 rep max for my back squat for 2 years. I can't figure out how to add even 5 pounds to my squat. And we say, okay, great. Let's look at your squat. And we analyze how they're squatting, and we realize there's a technique flaw that we need to work. Well, the only way to fix that technique flaw is to drop the weight and work on the movement. So once we identify what that movement is that needs to get fixed, it's going to change the weight that they can lift. They are going to go from, let's say it's a 500-pound back squat. They may go to a 400-pound back squat. It may be a 200-pound back squat and they go to 100-pound. Like, there's going to be a drop because the activation of the muscles work differently with a different technique. And until they can learn how to consistently perform that technique and then add weight again, they're going to be doing less weight. And it's the same thing with nutrition. If you change your nutrition, your body has to adapt, and your body will work differently over time, and then eventually get you back to where you were. But there has to be a setback first. And a lot of people quit before they come out of that.
Yes. Leave your ego at the door, basically.
Very much. Very much.
What I always say.
Yeah.
Good question from BTL Zone. Sorry, got your name wrong. Got any practical tips to help reverse autoimmune problems? Well, the biggest one is what we do, which is an elimination diet. I mean, you know, when you start with carnivore, you can go. Now, I'm going against what Bronson said there. I was the same. I'd been low carb, keto, then I went carnivore. That was a long period of time. But I also understand that I think if I'd have found out about carnivore 8 years previously, I might have just dived straight in. So that's it. But anyway, right. So if you have an autoimmune problem, I would eliminate as much as possible. Maybe go to a lion diet and then look at a systematic reintroduction of foods, because it could simply be a food that's triggering it. That's the first thing to rule out or in. So if you go lion, so many people do beef, salt and water, or you could do lamb, salt and water. I personally prefer lamb because the amino acid profile personally I think is better, especially in the UK. The lamb is fantastic. Not so sure about the States.
And it tastes better.
Yeah, and it's it's great. Yeah, and then you could introduce one thing. That's the other thing. Don't think, okay, well, I'm going to take out eggs, I'm going to take out this, that, and the other, and then 2 weeks of lion, and then think, right, I'm going to introduce some eggs and cheese, because that's not what we're doing. So it's a long. My biggest recommendation is the elimination and a very long reintroduction period with a lot of patients. Personally, because.
Yeah.
But
the elimination, and the elimination should, before you introduce, should be long enough to see a difference. Don't eliminate for a set time and be like, okay, well, I've eliminated for this time. If you haven't seen an impact or a change, then maybe there's something else you need to look at first, right? Before you start introducing things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's it. And make sure you're eating enough. That's the other issue. We see, don't go lion diet and then follow what a lot of, it's not necessarily intuitive eating when you're trying to heal a metabolic issue. You're trying to heal a problem in your body. You may need to eat more. Yeah. So there's a lot of things. It gets really hard to evaluate what am I doing? What protocol should I follow? And how does this all work? Because, some people will say to heal autoimmune, you should be fasting. Do you need to fast, though, if you're also athletic and you're going to do lion diet anyways, right? So there's things to evaluate here. What's the best way you think that can work for you, and what can you actually maintain day to day when you're looking at that?
And there's also things that aren't even diet related. I mean, I do everything. So environmental factors. We don't have Tupperware with plastics. We have glass. And we do as much as possible getting out outside, minimize exposure to non-native EMF and all this sort of stuff. So there's loads of things you can do. Lotto retirement strategies said IgG4 antibodies downregulate immune cells, lowers your immune system response. Biggest food contributors are cereals. Hopefully none are being eaten. Dairy and eggs. And they are, especially the whites of the eggs, and dairy is a big culprit for many people. So that's a nice contribution. Thank you for that. But that's that's what we see, isn't it? I mean, this is a way of protecting yourself from foods that are not beneficial for you, because it's so easy to find something that can trigger you. When you're not eating a whole raft of things, and you're not eating out, and you're having all the seed oils and stuff like that, and you're having beef every day, it just makes life really easy, because you immediately see it's food.
Yeah, and the idea is nutrition should support function.
Mm-hmm. I think you're frozen.
That's
there.
the goal of nutrition. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back. Back in the room. Okay. Yeah.
One of the biggest things that I really wish, if I had a magic wand that I could just change overnight, is this idea of fuel as being the sole discussion when it comes to food. There is so much more to it, and fuel is actually a small part. It's not even a major part of the discussion when we talk about nutrition. We talk about nutrition, and we should be talking about metabolic function and how food supports all of the pieces of how our body works and keeps us alive. Right? When we understanding that metabolism, this is another area that people just come at me all the time. Metabolism has nothing to do with how your body burns energy. Your metabolic rate is a bunch of BS. Because number one, we know calories are crap, and basing our function off of our miles per gallon doesn't make sense. Right? When we think about food as energy only, then we're looking at a car, and that means we don't ever look at the oil. We don't ever look at what our transmission fluid's doing. We don't look at our brake fluid. We don't look at the wear on our tires. We don't look at, do our windshield wipers work? We stop looking at all the function of the things that our car needs in order for us to drive safely on the road, and we just worry about miles per gallon. And that doesn't tell us anything at all. So this idea that food is fuel needs to stop, and we need to start talking about, how does nutrition support function? And when we start looking at that, we can say, what I'm eating is supporting my immune system. What I'm eating is supporting my hormone system. What I'm eating is supporting my cardiovascular system. What I'm eating is supporting my physiology and how my body builds muscle and supports regrowth and recovery. We can start looking at how my central nervous system is functioning based on what I'm eating and the nutrition that I'm getting. Like, it changes the whole paradigm. And we actually start looking at, this is what health means. It's not about energy at all.
And of course, your car analogy, I can push it a little bit further. It's not even talking about the fabric of the car. So your brake pads that you might have to change every so often. We're a brilliant thing, aren't we, humans? Because we put our protein in, it's not giving us any energy. It's making stuff. It's making structure. So imagine if you could give your car something that your brake pads didn't wear down. So they just
kept coming back.
Kept
self-healing brake pads. I like that.
Yeah, so it's like, I hate the reductive way we talk about food, because it is about other things. And it's the same when you talk about therapeutic fasting, for instance. I don't tend to think of fasting. I tend to think, I am fed. This is it. And at some point I need to refuel. So we're not sitting here today, right now, at this moment, going, right, we're both fasting right now. We're just getting on. So I'm using your car analogy again. You fill up your car with gasoline, and you're going to do 300 miles. But you don't, at 200 miles, you're not thinking, wow, this is really good. My car is fasting from gasoline. You just get on with it. So I think that's the thing. We've got to start just getting away from all the labels and start thinking about, well, what is food? It's nutrition. It's function. It has a function. The whole word nutrition is exactly what it is, which is, a very semantic argument. I love the fact you're doing your doctorate. I have 2 honors degrees in my life, and the other one is English. Macronutrient carbohydrates are not a macronutrient because I don't have a lot of them. So it's not a macronutrient for me, and it's not a nutrient. So when I talk to people about their macros, I only ever talk about protein and fats because that's what they are. Carbohydrates is a thing. It's
right.
I can't even think of a thing to call it really other than a thing. But it's not essential. It doesn't build anything, doesn't help us do anything, doesn't build muscle. So we don't need it.
That's a whole nother one. It doesn't build muscle. I cannot even quantify how much hate I get anytime I talk about you don't need carbs to build muscle. And the same people that will blast others for not following science, when you look at them and say, name one mechanism in the body that requires carbohydrates to build muscle, will list off a bunch of things that have nothing to do with the actual muscle protein synthesis process, but that's why you need carbs to build muscle. And then when you break all of those things down and try to show them the logic, then you're stupid, you're an idiot. I've had more in the last couple of months. I've had more "you're a moron" posts in comments to my content.
I must stop doing that. I'm sorry. I won't send anymore.
But yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And that's one of the other things for anybody listening. We talk about carbs are not essential. Exogenous carbohydrate intake is not essential for anything. That includes exercise performance, right? There is one scenario that I've found in the literature, and most of that literature is new, like recent in the last year. And that is extended endurance exercise with a minimal carbohydrate ingestion to combat hypoglycemia. That's it. So 3 to 5 grams every 20 to 30 minutes, not 20 grams, 30 grams every 20 minutes, right? Not 100 to 120 grams an hour, not that type of, like, we way overdo what we actually need. And I can tell you from a CrossFit perspective, from a strength training perspective, from a power lifter, Olympic lifter, sprinter, soccer player, any ball sport, there's no evidence that I've seen in any of the literature that exogenous additional carb supplementation is required to perform at any level in any of those things. Only endurance sports with a minimal intake to combat hypoglycemia. And there's some work being done to put a study together that will do the same comparison of ketone ingestion during endurance work to see if it's a brain thing, if it's not a blood thing. Because ketones go straight to the brain. And there's a theory, if anybody's looked into the central governor theory, there's a theory that fatigue in sport is more tied to brain function than it is actual fuel availability. And if you can fuel the brain, then you can perform better for longer. So we know that ketones go straight to the brain, and your brain will utilize ketones even in the presence of glucose. So if we can maybe say, hey, we know that a minimal amount of carb ingestion during endurance exercise improves performance. What if a minimum ingestion or supplementation of ketones during exercise compared to that does the same thing? So then we can say, hey, it's not just the carbs. Potentially, that'd be awesome if we could do that. So there's some work being done in that realm as well. So carbs don't help 99.9% of athletic performance at all.
Yeah, and I think you're right, because if you got fat, I would doubt that study is on fat adapted people.
Oh, no. Well, so that study was actually both. And that's the cool thing. So the carb ingestion, anybody that's interested in the study, Philip Prinz, Kutnick, a couple other people, carb ingestion during, and I forget exactly what the title of it is, but it'll be a carb ingestion improves performance, something like that. It came out last year. It came out, I want to say, early 2025. So it's a very new study. And they did it in a carb fueled group and a ketogenic group. And the minimal carbohydrate ingestion improved performance significantly in both by about 22%. So it was the same improvement in performance. And that's important because it shows that it's not a muscle glycogen thing. It's not a fat for fuel thing. If that little bit of improvement, right, just enough to combat and make sure the blood sugar level was high so that the brain had energy, that's all it took to improve performance. So it wasn't about were you carb fueled or fat fueled. It was about how much energy did your brain have?
Yeah. And I think if you can do the test or that study, extend it with just ketones, I think you'll find that ketones will do it as well.
That would be my theory. And that's what I'm hoping that we find out. Yeah.
These studies, they're so frustrating because they almost do it. They have so often you think, they'd have just done that. That would have been even better.
Well, and it's hard because studies of this kind of stuff are difficult. And that's where the challenge, and that's kind of where I want to focus, is that's where the challenge is. Number one, getting people to potentially decrease their performance to do these studies. So going to a cohort of anybody in any sport and saying, hey, we want you to try a ketogenic diet for 6 weeks. And by the way, when you do that, your performance is probably going to tank. No, who's going to sign up for that, right? Especially if you're competitive, right? So trying to find people during off season or people that are maybe recreational who don't really care what their performance is. They're just trying to do whatever. They just enjoy the sport, things like that. And then having a way to actually control for specific things in those studies long term, because it's got to be at least 6 weeks. 8 weeks would be better. 12 weeks would be better. But even being able to say, I need to control everything you're eating for 6 to 8 to 12 weeks. I need to control all the activity that you're doing in training for 6 to 8 to 12 weeks. That stuff, it's really challenging. And then it gets expensive and it's just harder to duplicate things. So it's a challenge. It's a big challenge to do this stuff.
That's brilliant. Okay. Well, I think we haven't got any more questions. I've really enjoyed this. Do you have a community or anything that where people can contact you?
Nothing that I'm really pushing right now. I do have a Discord. If anybody goes to my website, you can go and join my Discord. I'm not really doing a lot in there right now other than supporting people if they have questions and things like that. But most of what I'm doing right now is just YouTube content and working on a lot of projects.
All right. Okay.
I'm hoping that once this doctorate is over, which is going to be several years, but once the doctorate is over, it'll free my brain up to really say, okay, where do I want to go with this stuff? I've got 2 papers I'm working on right now, 2 more that I'm planning and trying to design, hopefully that we can get some studies and research done. So there's a lot going on.
Well, one of the things I was going to say is maybe you could join us. We have Richard Smith and myself. We run this school community.
Yeah.
Occasionally we do a question and answer session. So, in the calendar here, I did put that we were going live today. We were talking about blood glucose.
Okay.
We do lives on a Sunday and on Sunday 7, and then in the members thing at 8. So maybe next week or the week after, you could come in for an hour and people could ask you questions.
Yeah, sure. Let me know. That'll work.
Yeah, that's good. And we have a classroom. So if you wanted to put some extracts from your book in there, we could add it to one of the courses, and then you could do a link if people want to buy the book.
Okay. Yeah, we can talk. We can have a conversation offline, kind of figure out what are the things that you think people need or what they're asking for. If there's anything I can help out with that, sure.
Yeah, I thought I'd grab you while you're here.
Yeah.
Because you're a busy guy. Right. Okay. And could you put your YouTube channel link into the chat? Because
it's coach.bronson. It's super easy.
Okay.
All of my stuff. You can just go to let's see here if I can find how to do the link here. If you just type in Coach Bronson on in the browser, all my stuff will come up.
Brilliant. Okay. So I'm going to thank you, Coach Bronson, for being here, and all you YouTubers. Sorry about being late. We had a technical issue, and you were going to do a link to the ebook as well.
I did put it in. I don't know.
You did
where it is. I did. Did the link I just did to my YouTube come in?
It did. Your bad nuggets.
I'll do the other one. I'll do the other one again. Hold on.
You've come up as bad nuggets. That might be what confused Andrea.
Yeah, which I'm not sure why that did that, but
okay.
Can I change that?
Well, I don't know. I don't know why.
So that's in there. Let me remove that and let me try it again. Join the chat. Connect.
It's
that way
there,
people can
Andrea.
actually see Coach Bronson. Coach Bronson. Continue.
Yeah, you come up as Coach Bronson on the little logo thing.
Okay, there we go. So that's the right one. That's the ebook link.
He's now in there. Yeah.
My YouTube link.
Great stuff. Right.
Awesome.
Okay. That's what was better here? I won't get into the question about bad nuggets. All right. I'm going to stop now. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
I mean, bad nuggets is my gamer tag from 20 years ago that I've just never let go of.
Okay, YouTubers, thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Thanks for joining, everybody.